Peter, värme.
Shadow of the night. The sun had set. Twilight was long gone, and the sky was as dark as the blackest ink. The surroundings, however, were not completely black, for the sky was clear, with moon and stars alit. Only dim streetlights dared to project rays of light upon the shadowy ground. The town was nothing large, but it had some 1,000 inhabitants. Most of them were working about the docks that occupied the waterfront. Late at night, most of them went inside because they had all grown up, knowing about the guardian that loomed the world at night, hearing the stories about the terrors of the night. This night was no different from the average night in Snowdale. The only person outside was your typical John Doe. Machine worker Alan Scott was making his way home through the heaps of snow that the fortnight had left in droves. It was no easy task, but he was making good progress. After a while, exhaustion got the best of Alan, who decided to stand under a streetlight for a while in order to recover his strength for the push of the final leg. His decision was made without much thought, and he was afraid that his doing would do nothing but cause trouble. Perhaps he was right, only time could tell. He gazed upon the bleached horizon to look for the best way home. His head turned a whole lap, then one more. He saw nothing but a massive wall of snow. During his third pass of the surroundings, he noticed that something was wrong. Alan's senses sharpened, and his hair rose above his pale skin. A few hundred meters behind him, a dark figure appeared. As foretold by legends, the cloudy shape of a cloaked man was covered in the densest mist, shrouding him in a field of doubt and mistrust. He emerged from shadow and walked with determined steps toward Alan. He did not run or do anything else to arouse suspicion, yet Alan was shaking with fear that he would meet his maker far too soon. Alan started walking from the man in the mist, but he would not escape him. Alan quickened his pace and started running through the dense snow, trying to break away from the icy bonds of a frosty world. He thought that he could get rid of the other man soon, but discovered that this assumption was ill-put after turning his head around to confirm that he was safe. Behind him, the shadow pressed forward, through cones of light projected by the streetlights that surrounded the road. He passed, without revealing his identity. He was as dark in the light as in the dark, for shadows are nothing but a lack of light. Thus, he could not be seen, apart from his cloudy illusion. The shady man ran, but not through the snow. He ran on top of it. As his feet touched the snow, they did not sink down. For him, the snow was as dense as the very asphalt underneath it. The same did not apply to Alan, who fought a war with the white particles of death, which were keeping him from getting away. He looked behind him again. The mysterious figure was almost upon him. Although veiled in shadow and mist, the character was wearing a large leather coat. It was heavy, but nothing stopped a knight on a quest. The heavy cloak was caught in the wind and flew about him as frenzied as the man himself. As he drew closer and closer to his target, time slowed down. All motion faded into the fragments of time. Alan could not escape his death, only delayed, as can any man. How it would all happen had been determined a long time ago, but it was the night of death what to carry out the execution. Despite knowing this, Alan did not give up. He mustered his final strength in one great breath and continued to push against time. For him, it felt like moving through syrup, but he was moving forward through the surrounding bubble that dilated time, making it slow down to almost a halt. The darkness lifted the side of its coat and drew forth a long shiny blade of a metal unknown to man. It was far shinier than anything Alan had ever seen. In the haze, it actually appeared to be glowing. The sweat poured down along Alan's cheeks. He realized now that he could not postpone the inevitable any longer. Instead, he embraced death by walking toward the sharp sword, wielded by the knight. Startled by this, the shadow closed the distance to Alan and came to a halt right before him. The two figures now stood in the shadow projected by the mysterious man. For a while, these gazed upon each other without doing anything but observing. Finally, Alan could not take the fear anymore. He nodded at the other man, who immediately raised his blade into the sky. A beam of white light fell from the sky and hit the sword. A white fire blazed in the metal blade and consumed its essence as the blow was readied. Then, when the blow eventually came, The sword passed right through Alan's body, piercing his innards with tremendous power. Alan fell and landed on his knees. The pain was immense, yet fading as if consumed by the night. The night preyed on many things. It both took lives away and happiness. Thus, it had nothing to take away from Alan, who had lived a miserable life, which he had now given up. The knight then took a bow before him and handed over a package of cloth from underneath his robes. Alan put on his leather cloak and gently placed the metal blade in a sheath around his waist. Everything had been given to him, conjured by the dim man's magic. Finally, the two men rose up to the call of the night and traveled away into the distance together, side by side, both shrouded in mist and shadow.